Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of Real Men, Real Talk Live. Welcome. Hi, welcome back to the show. Again, my name is Jay. I'm the host of the show. I'd like to welcome into the studio tonight. We have Mr. Jeff Fasano. He calls Nashville, Tennessee home. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay.
And we have Everslove Heath, the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home. Welcome to the show, Ev.
Thanks for having me, brothers.
Josh Richard is taking a night off this evening. Hopefully we'll see him back next week on the show. But welcome to the show, guys. Wow, we are looking at the last day of April. I don't know what happened in the first 4 months of the year. It's almost like I took a nap when I woke up, and we are well into spring. In Mother's Day is, I think, a week or so from now. I want to do a couple of shout outs this evening as we wait for some of our viewers to show up. One is my mom celebrated her 85th birthday just a couple of 24 hours ago. Mom, happy birthday. We all love you.
Happy birthday, Mom. Happy birthday.
You know, it wasn't just a couple of years ago that Mom wasn't comfortable really disclosing how old she was. And that went on for decades. But you know what? Today, I think she's at peace. I think she's grateful to be alive, to be vertical, to be able to participate in her life and participate in my life as well. I am grateful to celebrate my mom's 85th birthday this week with my mom. Happy birthday coming in from Boynton Beach, Florida. Also want to do a shout out to Carrie Crary, who joined us last week on our 1 year anniversary, episode 54, where she talked about this week and next she is actually in Cancun, Mexico, receiving cancer treatment at Hope for Cancer. And so I've been in touch with Carrie and as well as Mary. And we're hopefully she's catching us live. If you are, please drop a comment down. If you are also a viewer and you are right now in the throes or midst of some type of physical or mental condition that you are right now working on or struggling through, we're here for you. We are here for you to hold space for you this evening, to honor and respect you and know that you never have to be alone. That's a choice. But we love you and we support you. And thank you for joining us, viewers. If you should hear something that you like or love, with love, please tap your love button on your monitor and light us up. If you have any questions or comments for us, please drop them in the comments, and we will do our best to flag it down and engage you in the show's topic tonight, which is all about, would the real adult show up? One of the byproducts of that is, who is showing up? Is it me, myself, or I? Another part of this topic tonight, which is really key, is what role does abandonment from our childhood play in our adult life? And how is it holding us back or keeping us living in a state of bondage that we may or may not even be aware of? And of course, how can we break the chain to our younger self calling the shots? Those are just some of the subtopics of tonight's show, but I want to invite you, Jeff Fasano, to warm us up. I'm sure you weren't expecting that. Most of the time I drop Ev into the hot seat, but I thought tonight I'd like to mix it up a little bit and invite you to kind of really open us up with who is the real adult and what does that mean in any event? So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks everybody for showing up once again on Real Men, Real Talk Live. And when we were talking about this on Tuesday night in the production meeting, what popped into my head is the question I raised today when I threw this out to the world was, is your wounded child running your life? Is that wounded 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old really running your life? And for most people, the wounded child is running their life. And what's so important is moving through a process of differentiating between that wounded child and the adult. The adult in 2021 or the wounded child back in 1975. So it's really important to see and move within to find when you're making choices, when things are happening in your life, are you responding from the adult space, the adult you that's now, or are you reacting from the wounded child, the wounded 10-year-old, based upon the programming conditioning of that child and the wounds of that child? So many people are making decisions in their life based upon the wounds of the child. And that's what first and foremost came to me when we brought up this topic, because as I said, and this happened in my life many times, many of the choices that I made in my life were all based upon that wounded 10-year-old or 15-year-old, looking outside of myself for validation and gratification, continually looking outside of myself. That wounded child is always looking towards mom and dad to make their decisions for them. That wounded child is looking for mom and dad for validation and gratification. That wounded child is wounded based upon mom and dad, where they weren't nurtured, where there was no nurturing, where there wasn't any validation and gratification from mom and dad because they were where they are in their process. So it's really important, folks, as we go through the night to look at your life, look at where certain choices in your life, certain patterns, certain habits, certain rituals, behaviors that you're perpetrating are all based upon old. And that old is the wounds of the child, the programming of the child, the conditioning of the child. And see why you're repeating all of these old patterns and behaviors. And more than likely, you're going to realize that it's not the adult today where you are. It's that wounded 10-year-old inside of you that's searching outside of himself or herself for whatever it is that you continue to look for.
Beautiful, Jeff. Beautiful, brother. Yeah, no, man. Thank you for that, Jeff. That's given me definitely a couple of nuggets to ride on and piggyback on my brother. So I'll jump in there if that's all good, Jay.
Of course.
Oh, my brother. Let's dive in, my brothers and sisters.
Yes, please.
As always, here from the land down under, thank you from the bottom of my heart on a Real Men Real Talk Live. And just a quick side note, thanks for our brothers and sisters jumping in on over the community group on that Real Men Real Talk Live community. If you haven't joined in the group, make sure you jump over there, share out the message into the community, because there's already a lot of people in there, and we're really appreciating you, what you're posting, what you're sharing, and it really is a safe space for you to be able to express who you truly are. And for me, like Jeff's touching on there, it really is about that safe space, isn't it, my brothers and sisters? Now, we talk about this wounded child so beautifully that Jeff's talked about, and we also talking about being the adult in 2021. I want to even take it one more step and piggyback on my brother and talk more so about that it's really the higher self as opposed and with that adult self. You know, I think to myself, growing up with what Jay mentioned in the intro about abandonment, I mean, it really rocked a lot of my life. And I think to some of the lessons that I've been able to beautifully learn on my spiritual journey and my awakening self-realization journey, and some of those things that really showed up within my life, and one of the big ones was codependency. It was a cycle that I had to really break from that wounded child, because, I mean, you got to think, my brothers and sisters, how we've really evolved on this planet. It's not like the old ways. Now, even in my culture, I wasn't even taken through law, but I know plenty about it. I know that the child, certain age group in their life would actually be taken from the mother. And what would happen in part of one of those steps in our LORE law is that, you know, the mother would actually watch some of the behaviors while that boy's being taken through bush camp. These were some behaviors that she knew that were what sort of, you know, young man he was going to be, where he may have had to work on, what he may have had to, what she had to have been aware from him growing up through those stages within his life. You know, we don't go through all of that sort of stuff these days, my brothers and sisters. We don't have the rites of passage like we did back in the day, like our ancestors had. So we carry on these energies of codependency. And like Jeff has just mentioned, cutting that long story short, is that we really don't cut the cord. So we fall back into our adulthood, into relationships to find the validation, to find the wounds, to find the gratification, and to find some of those blockages or holes that we may not be fulfilled as the child. I mean, this shit goes so deep on so many levels, my brothers and sisters. But, you know, to really start talking about it like we are here on Real Men Real Talk Live tonight for our personal experiences, I know we're going to be diving in deep about a lot of things. And just one thing for me that came up while Jeff was talking was that big codependency issue that many people have when we're going through who's showing up in their life in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment here. We got some echo coming in. I'm not sure where.
Yeah, I can hear that, man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hold on one second. Here, while we try to figure that out, I want to acknowledge Donna MC, who says, by the time I was 39, both parents and brother had passed. I was mad that they abandoned me through their death, or through death. It left a big hole that sometimes shows up 20 years later. And Mary Kelly says, how have you filled that empty hole? You know, it's interesting. I remember for decades, I had that same feeling inside. And that feeling of emptiness, that hole, at some point, as I started to understand more about it, it was felt like a black hole in the soul. I'd like to take some time tonight for us to really take a look at, well, the echo is really bad right now. I'm going to take a moment here to drop out and see if we're able to correct it. You guys are going to invite you, Jeff Fasano, to pick up on really where I want to go for Donna MC and for all of us. How do we break that chain? How do we feel to fill up that hole inside that has either our younger child showing up in our adult life or our ego coming up with his or her best solutions, which typically involves some type of addictions or addictive behaviors.
Hmm. You know, it's the Evis and Jeff show.
First time, brother. Here we go.
Really? I'd like to introduce everybody to my my co-host, Evis Love.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Thanks for having me on Real Men Real Talk Live, brother.
You know, let's talk amongst ourselves. But the thing about it is I go back to the wounding. With Donna's comment, you know, when at a certain age she lost her parents and her brother or whatever that, and at that age, perhaps, or even before that, there was wounding there. All of us have wounding from our childhood and growing up. And what happens is, as we grow up or we grow older, chronologically, we grow into quote unquote adulthood, that wounding's still there. Unless you've started to work on it. Like Eva says, it goes deep. Folks, it is deep. It's all up to you to want to go in there and really into that depth to heal those wounds, but bring them to your consciousness so you can differentiate, that's my wounding, that's what's coming up. It's triggering. I might have experienced an abandonment, a betrayal, or whatever when I was 5, 6, 7, 10 years old. But now, as the adult at 40 years old, 45 years old, 50, 60, 35 years old, whatever it is, what's happening in our lives will trigger those old memories and that wounding. But what it's doing is bringing up those feelings. So when we're 50 years old or 35 years old or 40 years old, something happens in our life that triggers the memory of that wounding. It brings up feelings behind it. So you're feeling abandoned. And then the memory of it will come up. So it's up to us as the adult at 50 years old, at 40 years old, at 35-year old, to differentiate right then and there. These feelings are coming up. I'm feeling abandoned. I'm feeling betrayed. I'm feeling, quote unquote, empty inside of myself. And then it's about differentiating from that, but going into that wounding, going into that conditioning, going into that programming to begin to allow that wounded child to come to the surface and have a safe place to feel and express themselves of where they are in this moment. So as Jay began the show, it is like, who is showing up in the moment that you're triggered? Is it you, the adult, who can differentiate in a state of conscious and awareness? Oh, wow, what's being triggered right now is this memory and these feelings. But the reality of what's going on is not what happened in your wounding. And that's the point that I'd like to really stress and have those feelings. I'm feeling empty right now. But you're not empty, you're there. That's the adult.
Yeah, beautiful, brother. And you know, like what you're going into there, Jeff, too, when we go into that deeper side of the science, now we're starting to talk about how we reprogram for the subconscious. Because, you know, we know that the subconscious can really only be programmed through really being able to get into particular brainwave state, getting into that theta brainwave state. We've got to understand that the subconscious can only be programmed. We've said this on show after show, through repetition, but also through what Jeff's talking about, through really having that emotional intelligence. So if you're having these, like Jeff said, feelings of abandonment, we need to sit with those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We need to identify the feelings that are attached to the event that's keeping us in that feeling of abandonment. It's something that is in the past. So once we're present within ourselves, we identify the feeling, the emotions that lie above those feelings, because these feelings are deeper than emotions. Got to remember that, my brothers and sisters. These are going into resentment. They're going into the blame, the guilt, the shame. So we've got to go deeper and sit with some of those feelings. Once we've identified it, ask yourself, is it negative or is it a positive feeling? We know most of these feelings of abandonment, if you're not fully lit, is going to be what we would say a negative feeling. So can we be able to really transmute it into a positive feeling, but really knowing what event held you in that negative space or that negative feeling initially? Then ask yourself, my brothers and sisters, is it yours? Are they your feelings? And why I ask you this is because through my awakening, I've realized I'm rewriting generational trauma. The feelings of codependency, those feelings of resentment that we're talking about, these are deep feelings that have gone through my lineage, generation after generation. And I've had to sit with them. And when I ask myself, my subconscious, they weren't mine. They were not my true being, not the young inner child that came down here gifted, unlimited, infinite in possibilities. Not that inner child. but they were passed down from my families. So then when we were able to identify, we were able to sit and ask if they're ours, what event tied these emotions to it, then to me, my brothers and sisters, we can start recreating the story. And that is a healed, healthy inner child who starts using their imagination.
Yeah, I love that, Ev. I want to bring up on a screen here, Beverly Annette said, "I am not my feelings. I am not my mind. I am the soul who experienced the trauma, who carried it. It is understanding that these feelings are attached only to memories." This is such a powerful statement, Bev. Amazing, because so many of us, I could speak for myself. I was showing up in life unaware, unconsciously living and making choices based on my attachment to past experiences and memories of those experiences that had defined how I showed up at home, how I showed up in the office and business, how I showed up in friendships. And I could tell you, it wasn't real pretty. I hid behind the power of success for a pretty decent amount of time. But eventually, even that caught up with me. Eventually, there wasn't enough money being produced. There wasn't enough success in career to protect me from ultimately what I had to face, which is that my life had become out of control as a man in his mid-50s. And so it's such a beautiful statement that Beverly shared. Ev, I also love what you talked about, that a lot of times it's not even ours. It's something that we've inherited from our own ancestors from generations back. You know, I was one of these guys that I thought, we talk about abandonment. I really thought that I had never been impacted or affected by abandonment until I finally had my own breakthrough in the last year. I realized that even in my own childhood, as much as I thought I had escaped that wrath, I hadn't. And that's the beautiful thing about this journey called life, this journey of self-reflection, self-discovery, having the courage to do the work that what we're talking about week after week on Real Men Real Talk Live, doing the work, showing up for ourselves, facing those shadows as we dived into about 3 weeks or so ago in a prior episode. And really not looking to re-trigger yourself into the traumas, but be able to, in reflection, really kind of look at all aspects of your younger years and be able to have those moments of clarity where I was able to realize, like, there was no doubt that I had been tagged with abandonment in my own childhood. And you know, the beautiful thing is I can be at peace with it today. It helps me understand why I have shown up the way I showed up. It helps me understand why I had such a strong attachment to codependency or codependent behaviors in all of my relationships. Because ultimately, my biggest fear was being abandoned one more time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, abandonment doesn't have to be where a mom or a dad or a caretaker leaves your home and it's a broken family. Abandonment has many different forms, has many different ways of showing up in our life. Mom and dad could be present in a home and you could still experience abandonment if all of your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual needs as a young child are not being met. It can be that simple. But the beautiful thing, Jeff, I'm gonna invite you to jump in a moment here. For me, was I was out in nature. I was out on a trail. I was by myself, deep into my spiritual morning practice, and it just came out of left field. It just popped up. The acknowledgement, the awareness that so much of how I had been showing up in my adulthood as a man living in modern society was due to abandonment that I had experienced as a child. And as I said, the beautiful thing is that I'm not pointing fingers. There's no blame. There's no shame. There's no guilt to be had. That will never serve us or our relationships. For me, it's just about having the awareness so that I could be more aware of when I have these moments where I get, let's say, activated or triggered. Sue Gaskell coming in from New Zealand. She doesn't like the word trigger. Ev, I know you know who Sue Gaskell is because you did a podcast with her, as have I. She loves the word activated because trigger sounds really harsh, and it can be. But regardless of what we want to call it, that's just a word, just a label. It's beautiful when we can have the awareness, and that gives us the opportunity to really work on healing the shadow behind the memory of the abandonment that we felt. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's simple, but it's not easy because it means that we have to keep catching ourselves each time it comes up. And then for me, how I manage it is I parent my younger self. That whenever I'm aware that I'm having a reaction to an old abandonment shadow, I get to show up as my higher self, as my adult, and hold that young boy, hold that beautiful younger JJ. Tell him I love him, show him I love him, nurture him, nourish him, have a play date with him, take him out for a healthy dinner, make a healthy dinner, connect with people. I came home and I shared my epiphany immediately. I didn't need to hold on to it anymore. I wanted to put it out in the universe to help release it. And I shared it with Mary, and it was beautiful for me. So, Jeff, I don't know if you even recall what you were going to say.
Joe, that was beautiful.
I do. Actually, just dovetailing what you just said, Jay. Abandonment. If we're going to stay on the topic of abandonment, is exactly, my parents stayed married for 150 years. They were there. I wasn't orphaned. I wasn't there. But abandonment and those issues can surface in a very, very subtle way, based upon the development of mom and dad. And in my case, it was mom, where based upon my mother gained her self-worth, gratification, validation through me because I was a miracle kid. And when my needs came up to be nurtured at whatever age, 4, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, my mother was gaining her gratification through me. So when my mom got her gratification of here's my son, this, that, and the other thing, and then all of a sudden, I needed the nurturing. I needed something at 5, 6, 7, even 10 years old. Mom, based upon where she was so self-involved that she couldn't give that to me because she got her needs met through whatever that was and went off, had her needs met. And that's where my abandonment issues began. When I needed nurturing at 10, 8, 7, 6 years old, mom, who really didn't understand how to do that, but got her gratification and validation from wherever she was, got her needs met, went, I'm out of here. And then all of a sudden it left me feeling abandoned. Through the work that I've done on myself, I've realized that. So as Jay said, when I'm activated, that begins to happen, I've got the tools enough to differentiate and allow myself to feel the feelings of abandonment, but bring myself with the tools of the knowingness that that's what it was. But as Jay just said, we've got to learn how to nurture that 8-year-old that pops up in the moment that we're triggered / activated, and have the tools to nurture, like Jay just said, nurture. Oh, I'm feeling abandoned right now. And as Eva said, it can go pretty deep. So what do? Many people will want to avoid those feelings and then develop these patterns, habits, rituals, and behaviors of sheer avoidance, addiction. What we have to do now is go back, like Jay says, with little JJ, whoever that is, and begin to bring that child into the present moment and begin to nurture that child where they are. I don't care how old you are. I'm 62 years old, and that shit still comes up. And it has been coming up in the last couple of weeks in my life. And I've learned to differentiate, but go in and I need to nurture myself where I am. I'm not nurturing the 62-year-old adult Jeff. I might be nurturing the 12-year-old Jeff where that memory or that trauma was inflicted.
That's beautiful, brother. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Okay.
What I was just going to ask, Jeff, if it's been come up in the last couple of weeks, my brother, what are some of the beautiful tools that you've been able to use that you could probably share with our brothers and sisters that may be going through some of the same sort of patterns?
The first thing to do is to raise your awareness and consciousness and feel your feelings. Feel them. People want what many people want to do is feelings come up and they might be deep. And as Evis and I were talking, before I went on the air, the energy right now, what's going on in the world is just it's intense, and it's intense. So we can start to bring up this stuff to the surface. So much and so many people right now is coming to the surface. They're being activated / triggered by someone or something. And it's coming up and it's coming up. And the old behaviors was, wow, I go into my mental body to figure out why, but then you bypass actually having the experience of the feeling, let the trauma surface. Let that wounded child come up. So what I've been doing is just allowing these feelings, and the feelings come in waves. They come in waves and they come up. And I use, and the biggest tool we can use is breathing into the feeling, using the breath with sound. Because the most important thing is that as the feeling comes up, there is energy attached to those feelings. And we want to move the energy. So Jay will go out in nature and walk and do a hike for 2.5 hours to begin to move that energy and let the energy move within you. So then the feelings will move as well. But really give yourself the freedom to now feel, and then not avoid or repress and suppress and stuff those feelings. So that's what I have been doing. And then the tools are, okay, now I have to move the energy attached to those feelings, and then utilize the tool with breath and sound. Swim, move it. Don't sink or indulge into it. Don't go out and start drinking and repressing and use that old behaviors. Folks, if you're watching this show, that shit's not going to work anymore. It doesn't work for me anymore, and it might not work for Jay or Evis anymore, which is why we're doing this. You cannot bypass it. You cannot suppress it. You cannot repress it. You cannot use old habits and behaviors any longer, because this is the old cliche. The only way to move through it is that you got to be in it, experience it, and it will move through you.
Yes. It's possible. Jeff Fasano bringing it home one more Friday night on Real Men, Real Talk Live. I want to take a moment here, gentlemen. I want to bring Shannon Thompson up on the screen here. And this is so powerful. Shannon says, I never felt abandoned by my parents. But at this moment, in this moment, I have a realization that alcoholism was a form of abandonment. Shannon, thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for allowing your heart to be open, to feel it and receive it. And know that you're not alone. We're here with you. And we appreciate you. And we see you right now. And we understand you. God, it just brings me to tears, guys, because I know how powerful it felt when I had that moment, that realization, that moment of clarity. You know, alcoholism, no doubt, the misuse of alcohol and drugs, not just alcohol, but drugs as well, will leave a child feeling abandoned. Let's talk about mental health conditions. If you have a mom or a dad that is struggling with mental health conditions or disorder, there's a lot of moments where a child may feel like they feel alone because mom or dad are not available. They're deep into their own disease. It could be work. It could be have two parents that are working mega hours and the child's being raised by daycare or after school programs. Mom and dad are putting in 8, 10, 12 hours a day. That child in that home can feel as well that their needs are not being met, and they may not, be able to verbalize it at a very young age, but it will come forward as it does for many of us. Shannon, Ev, what do you make of what Shannon just shared here?
Yeah, man, it just took me back, brother. It just took me back, that self-abandonment that I started to really pick up within my own life, that, like I said, was really come down through the lines because, my first experience of the abandonment came, as most of our viewers know on the show, when mum and dad weren't around through those tender ages between that 1 to 7, 1 to 13. Had suffered and gone through a lot of abuse and seen a lot of stuff go on. And I remember, mum saying that she had to go away to make a better life for me and my brother. And I only gave her the realization, which I brought up on the show a few weeks back, that I confronted her with. And I said that I felt abandoned during that time where all we needed was your love. Mm-hmm. But she felt that she was doing the best thing for us. So how that carried on into my adulthood is that these beautiful things we call relationships, we always talk about on Real Men Real Talk Live, those beautiful mirrors that were coming into my life that were relationships, when I had the particular person walk out on me in the relationship, once again, what did I feel?
Abandoned.
I felt abandoned. So once I felt abandoned, my turn to was the bottle as well. And that was the very behavior that I saw my unemotional father go through with my mum when they were, in their younger age as I was growing up as well. So once I was able to experience, become aware of that behavior, like we're talking about tonight, I was able to check myself. I knew it wasn't healthy, man. Like our sister's saying, I knew I was abandoning myself. But these days, my self-abandonment is in my dream state. It's when I'm imagining things in dark space. It's when I'm creator space, not consumer of alcohol, drugs, or any other addiction out there that may be numbing us out at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Ev, I want to take a moment here just to acknowledge you and thank you, because you may have said it before, but I never heard it disclosed before that you yourself had turned to alcohol because that was what you were taught. And, we're only as sick as our secrets. And I really appreciate, if I didn't hear it before, I apologize, but I heard it this time. I heard it right here, right now, April 30th, 2021 on Real Men Real Talk.
We're on May 1st here, brother. Taurus season.
Yeah.
My season.
Let me ask you this, Ev. How did you break the cycle? How did you break the chain to all that you inherited in your childhood? All of those pivotal moments, experiences, traumas, wounds, sadness, hurt, pain that you then kind of mirrored as a young adult.
Sorry, brother, go.
How did you break the chain of it? How can we break the chain of it?
Yeah, we can't say it's one thing, my brothers and sisters. We know that. We know this can be a lifelong journey. We know it's part of the awakening journey. But really how I really did, I started to become aware by observation, like I always talk about, a metacognition of coming outside of self and being able to observe the event through your behaviors, your habits, why you maybe keep drawing in that particular energy of abandonment into your life. We're here to heal. Mm-hmm. So when I was able to accept that of myself and take ownership of my behavior, my habits, my turning to the alcoholism from the abandonment, and see that it was not even my behavior. This is what I'm talking about, my brothers and sisters. I knew that wasn't me. I knew that wasn't what you see here right now. Mm-hmm. So I was able to become aware. I took ownership, started taking responsibility for my actions. And then I was be able to, really get onto that path of my plan. The biggest one for me was being able to go into solitude. And I know we touch on it, probably could be a whole show here on Real Men Real Talk Live, because so many of us, we even lean on to go into the next relationship hoping they're going to fix our wounds.
Whoa, stop right there. I want to know right now. That's the first time I've ever sung on air. Yep. Wow, that's amazing. And my name isn't Elvis or Evis.
There you go, brother. There you go.
I think in that moment,
or Meatloaf.
Meatloaf. Yeah, that's right. You got it. But did you ever? By the way, I think you actually did a photo shoot with Meatloaf. Did you not, Jeff?
I've photographed Meatloaf. I've never done in New York City, when I was working on a radio show on XM, he popped into the show, so I did some shots of him. Beautiful. Great guy.
So the only difference was that you didn't get paid for that engagement. You just did that.
No,
it was not a financial transaction. But
getting back out of love, Jeff.
Getting back to the show, that was out of love. I probably would have done the same thing. And let's get back to the topic at hand. You said something really powerful, and I said, stop right there. I want to know right now.
Yeah.
Ev, I'm going to invite you to kind of bring back the question again, and let's just have a moment, a pause after the question, and let's take it in. What was the question again, Ev?
Fire me up, brother. Well, I'm talking about how we're breaking the cycle here, my brothers and sisters. But being able to accept yourself, taking responsibility for those behaviors, habits that you form within your life, and taking ownership for your own life and not other people's stuff. When I was able to get through that part of my life, then I was able to start doing my own thing. I knew what my own thing was. And I was able to then start establishing boundaries, which we've talked about in previous shows as well, to start really navigating through this particular being that I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So it's never just the one thing, my brothers and sisters. Never was the one thing. I hope that answers Jay the Rough Man.
I think what you actually, the question was, you said something in effect like, how do we bring it into our adulthood? How do we bring it into our adult relationships? Or how do we, I think that's what the question was really. Like, we tend to carry it into our adulthood unknowingly. We're showing up right where we're at, almost in an unconscious way. It's more of a subconscious way.
I think I heard Ev say.
Watch the replay, brothers. We're gonna have to watch the replay here.
I think, and what I heard Ev say is that it is many of us, and I know I've done this, we seek relationships thinking that relationship and that person is going to heal us.
Yeah, we try to fall back. Exactly, Jeff.
And that's what I bring, like, that's seeking outside of ourselves someone or something that we think is going to heal us, and that never works. Mm-hmm. And then Ev went into taking responsibility for ourselves. I mean, I've done that thinking, because really what that is, folks, is still the wounded boy, the wounded girl inside of us seeking mom and dad to give us the nurturing, the love, et cetera, that we never had. So in line with what we're talking about, being our adult self, are we entering into relationships? And it doesn't matter what relationship it is, romantic, friendship, are we continually seeking outside of ourselves someone to heal us or heal that wounded child, thinking that, well, I'll get into that relationship or I'll hang out with them, that's going to heal me. The consciousness there is, wow, that's still my 10-year-old looking for mom and dad to nurture me and love me and stuff like that. And that's just not going to work. And I've done that in my life in the past, thinking that, and it never happens. And it's got to come back into to here, because and the most important thing is that it's, and we spoke about this in other shows, we can't do this alone. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this show, so we can share all of this to help others who think they can do it. You know, they might, the only way they know is to do it alone, but it's about seeking support and guidance where you are, so you can learn the tools to love, honor, and nurture yourself.
Jeff, I want to bring up, to piggyback, a couple of comments. One from Elizabeth says, love yourself and don't expect another to fix you and heal you. Simple, not easy, because part of the challenge is that there's a lack of self-love. So there's another, question of how do we get there? But that's, we've talked about this on prior episodes, and we'll continue to drive it home. Jeannie Cash, I want to bring this comment up because this is really powerful. She says, I've been told to quit focusing on it and it will go away. I'm interested to hear your guys' perspective on that. I'll share mine since I posted it here. I am not a believer. Two things. One is I agree that we shouldn't focus on it, but it's not going to just go away because it's attached to us at the cellular memory within our body. It's part of what we experience from typically age 0 to 7 of age. And so it's not that we shouldn't focus on it, but what we can do is change our relationship with it. In other words, when I understood, and I'm going to repeat that, it's that we change our relationship with the past experiences that impacted our life in a very profound way at the heart and soul level. How we change our relationship with it is that as soon as we're activated or it comes up, we have the awareness, we then can nurture or parent our younger self. And we also change our relationship with it by no longer blaming other people for those past things that happened, no longer living in guilt, shame, or blame, but really focusing on forgiveness and empathy towards the people that had that impact on us at such a young age that created the pathway for how we show up as adults. And through the forgiveness process, miracles can unfold. Now, I'll share a personal miracle with you guys, since tonight we seem to be really speaking up and sharing some vulnerability here. I had mommy issues. No doubt. I had mommy issues in my life. And for many years, it was a very, very conflicted relationship. But through the process of forgiveness, forgiving her, having empathy, and really taking time to embrace that process, also cutting the cord, breaking the chain to the cord, the umbilical cord, metaphorically speaking, but it's so deep, it's real. Once I had that beautiful process unfold in my healing journey and self-forgiveness for how I then showed up as an adult, because I had such inner rage and hurt towards my mom, that for the first time in my life, like, I can actually call my mom, receive a call from my mom with love, and not old energy patterns, not that old stuff that was there for decades. It's gone. It's dissolved. There's freedom with that. There's freedom that I could reach out to my mom today for her birthday, not out of obligation, but because I want to see her. Not only do I want to speak to her, but I refuse to do any call other than a video chat. I want to see my mom. When I want to speak to someone, I want to see them. I don't call them on the phone anymore. That's old school. It's 2021. Connect, eye to eye. And for me, it was beautiful. You know, I got to wish my mom a happy birthday, and I couldn't reach her. I tried her 3 times. 10 years ago, if I couldn't reach her the first time, I was good to be out. I was like, okay, I tried. She wasn't available. I'm now off the hook. You see how this can work? Now, I'm grateful that my mom's alive today and that I'm able to have healed my wounds, my past relationship with my mom. But do you guys think it's possible we could do the same thing if our parent isn't alive?
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that?
Hey, my parents aren't alive, and I'm still working through them.
Mm.
My parents haven't been around for a long time, and I still experience the wounds, the lack of nurturing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because, as you just said, Jay, it's on a cellular level. The imprint came at 5 years old from mom and dad. That imprint is there. That's there. And you might have avoided it for 40 years. Mom and dad might have passed on, but that imprint is still there. So then it's about working on that imprint, that memory on that cellular level, and moving through it, and then seeing where you've recreated a lot of those relationships in your life. And because you avoided all of those feelings.
Beautiful.
So it is. It you know, I'm doing it. I'm still doing it. Beautiful.
So we could do it whether parents or whoever it is that was our caretaker, whether they're alive or they've transitioned, we can still do it. It was really a setup question. Tracy Smith, you know,
yeah, never ask the questions you don't know the answer to.
You're not going to get Jeff Fonsano. Come on, brother.
Yeah. Tracy Smith says, for those who've loved ones have crossed, the power of mediumship is so healing. Love that, Tracy. I know there's some more depth to that one there. But we are coming up 6 minutes to the hour. So it's that time of the show where we do musical chairs. And so I'm going to bring us back in here. And on musical chairs tonight, I'm going to ask each one of you gentlemen a question, and then one of you return the favor. And I'll when it's my turn, I'll come in and speak from my heart space. And so we have had, before we jump into the next segment of tonight's broadcast, I want to just take a moment to thank all of our viewers that have showed up right on time, your time, whether you're here live, streaming with us, or on replay. We appreciate you showing up. If you could take time to share out our show in your social media family and friends in your own network, we would appreciate that so we can grow organically. The healthiest way to grow is organically. Also, you can catch all of our replays on YouTube. On our YouTube channel, just do a search for Real Men Real Talk Live, and you could subscribe. And then there's a playlist, one of the titles at the top. It's got all of our prior shows archived by week and by title. And lastly, as Ev mentioned earlier in the broadcast, we have created on Facebook a community page where you can join on and follow us. It's called Real Men Real Talk Live Community. And please join us. It's open for all of those that are viewers, fans, and our audience to join us and participate on a daily basis in conversation, inspirational conversation, bringing hope to others that it's possible to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. I never knew that it was possible for me to forgive some of the people that I had been carrying hurt and pain for so many years. And with such gratitude today, I could say that, as I think it was Katrina said, that there's freedom in that. Mm-hmm. And it sure is. There's tremendous freedom in that. And so with what time we have left, Jeff, I'm going to actually, since you opened us up tonight and got us hot, we're going to have Evis bring us down into the close here. I'm going to hit you with a question, Ev, in a moment here. Give me one moment here to come up with one good one. So here's your question. How can someone realize they are not their feelings to break the cycle, especially when alcohol or drugs are involved?
Deep question, my brother, and thank you. It's really understanding what feeling the event the feeling is attached to. You know, really ask yourself where those feelings, those emotions, like we said in the start of the show, of those events that they were attached to, are they yours? You know, is it part of your program? Or is it just mirroring, like we've talked about tonight, triggers, the activation of another program that you've been handed down? Like I said, my brothers and sisters, these feelings may not be ours. They may have been programmed down to you. But when we identify these feelings and the event that the feeling is attached to, then we can start being a little bit clearer about our thoughts. Because we've got to understand too that a lot of these feelings, these emotions, they come from thoughts. We regurgitate these things, so they're going back and forth, cycling each other. So then we become a master of our own domain or of our own mind, of being able to control some of those things that we can control. And that's you being able to master your own thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. So when we actually try and get there, we hopefully are at that 0 point energy that I talk about. So when we find ourselves in these events again, which is our really modern day rite of passage and initiation, which universe will keep throwing at you until you learn the soul's lesson. So my brother, 100%, being able to really understand, identify those feelings first, ask if they're your own, and think about what event it was attached to. Because like I mentioned earlier on, we're walking around so unconscious, so many of us, ran by feelings and emotions, flooding our bodies, flight or fight survival mode, unconsciously. So yeah, brother, I'd have to answer it like that, my brother.
The universe will keep on throwing it at us until we start to until
we work our way around it.
Really, or work our way through it.
Yep.
I mean, that's where we are, guys. We're in a place right now. If you really want to do the inner work, the universe is going to keep on throwing it at us. for us to heal. As Ev said earlier, we're here to heal. And the universe is going to keep on throwing relationships or whatever at us to finally, if we're willing to get it and then move through it.
There you go.
So if that's happening, folks out there, if you feel like you're bang, this is how bang, bang. Well, the universe is doing its mightiest to get your intention.
Especially now.
Yeah, especially now.
Jeff Fonsano.
I'm just taking a moment here just to pause, just to receive it, just to accept it, just to hear it and feel it.
Well, Ev opened the door right there.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, before you come in, I want to just share something that Beverly, again, is now saying. And I want to, again, thank all of our viewers that have been actively dropping comments in. There's so much gold, liquid gold in our community this evening. Thank you for being part of our community. She says, and for sharing openly your truths, your own vulnerability as we are sharing ours this evening. She says, when you are able to understand that your thoughts are your mind, the programmed unconscious mind, then you can sit back and just watch the thoughts and let them pass. Don't hold on to these programmed thoughts. Let them pass through you. That's beautiful words of wisdom, Bev. And I know one question that helps me in any given moment that I realize that I'm in thoughts is to ask myself, is it true? Is that thought even true? Or is it something I'm projecting out that may or may not happen because it hasn't happened yet if it's a thought about something in the future? Mm-hmm. So I love that one. Jeff, you're up.
Wait, since we have the 80s theme of music, I'm going to throw this in there. Hit me with your best shot. Oh, that was the 70s.
Jeff.
Well, it doesn't count if you don't sing it. Come on.
Come on, Jeff.
I can't even go anywhere close to Pat Benatar. So
wait a minute.
Come on.
Is that just a story?
Hit me with your best shot.
See, there's the new story you just created. I think you could actually do better than Pat Benatar.
Yeah, I like that.
Katrina says 80s is my jam.
Oh, yeah, Katrina.
If 80s is your jam, what was the 90s for you, Katrina? Drop it in the comments section. Mary says, showing your age, Jeff Fasano. So Jeff, here's your question. This topic is so complex.
It is.
Would the real adults show up? Because we really honed in. A large part of our conversation this evening was about abandonment and how that carries us into our adulthood and into our relationships. And so many of us, I myself included, struggled for years in being attracted to men and women, whether it be for intimate relationship or just a friendship. Relationships that, let's say, weren't the healthiest for me, because I was picking those people to be in my life as my younger self, not as my higher self, let's say. And so many of us do it, even in friendships and intimate relationships, where we're picking our mates, our friendships and intimacy based on our younger self needs, the needs of our younger self that's still alive, still kicking, still is very needy, still has desires. Jeff Fasano, what will it take? What does it take for us as men in our 40s, men in our 50s, men in our 60s, and even men that are widowed in their 70s, seeking relationships to pick healthier relationships in their life by the higher adult self, not the ego and not our younger child. What do you think it's going to take for us to show up and grow up?
What we've been doing for a year now. It's about loving, honoring, and value yourself, getting to know who you are. It's really that, it's that simple. So you can have yourself. So you know how to nurture yourself. You have the tools to have your feelings and give yourself the freedom to have all of your feelings. You are practicing self-care, self-love, knowing that you're worthy. These are all and have been my biggest challenges in life, is nurturing myself, honoring myself, valuing myself. And when we start to do that and know that this is as a couple of weeks ago, and Ev said, this is the only life we have. Am I in it? It really comes down to that self-awareness, self-consciousness, self-love. So then we as the adult we're becoming healthy. We are becoming healthy within ourselves. And then when we go out and begin to form relationships as that healthy adult, we're going to have that criteria of, does this relationship serve my highest good? Does it raise my resonance and vibration? Quite possibly you're entering in a relationship, boom, the mirror of dad shows up. It's about discernment. Adults know what discernment is. Children don't. Children don't even know what choice is. We have choices, and we make those choices all the time. So it's about growing up within ourselves, but really begin to learn how to love, honor, and nurture ourselves when those feelings come up, when those activations / triggers happen, and we're triggered, and the memories come up, and the feelings come up. We have an opportunity to move within and begin to heal it, and then differentiate between the wounded child, because what we're doing is we're nurturing that wounded child, then we're nurturing ourselves. And then we can move into the adult that has a myriad of choices, but we have to know who we are first. Going into a relationship and thinking that person is going to fix you, change you, and all that good stuff, nurture you, love you, and honor you, is only going to happen based upon how deeply you love, honor, and value yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I want to emphasize that this doesn't just go for relationships, intimate relationships between a couple. No. This is also for friendships. Yeah. I keep being reminded that there's something called the dating game. Now, taking it to another level, really dating is supposed to be about is vetting, really listening, asking healthy, loving questions, really getting to know the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Before you jump into bed or you jump into a relationship with someone, to protect yourself, to protect your younger self, that younger boy or girl that's alive within us, even in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, to make sure that we're yoked, to make sure that we're aligned, to make sure that we're energetically aligned. If you're here and I'm down here, we've got ourselves a potential for a relationship of attachments. When we can come and be here relatively equal, aligned, there's where we can connect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even as a man, as I am, living a much healthier life than I ever have, it's still very slippery. It becomes a slippery slope. How easily we can let people into our life that may not be good for us. It may not be healthy for us. It may not be an evenly yoked relationship that we can. It's a win-win.
Mm.
And that's why it's important. That's how we, as the higher self, can protect our younger self, who we let into our inner circle. And sometimes we see that we need to retreat. We need to step back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
good. A good way to look at a good way to look at this. I'll use the term "good." I don't like to use "good" and "bad," but a healthy way to look at this is just, wherever you are in your life, look at all of the relationships that you've had, whether they're love relationships, but even your friendships. I can look back and look at all these friendships that I've had from, early life and through my 20s and 30s, college and all that good stuff, and see where I'm at right now and look at those relationships and say, wow, why isn't this person in my life anymore? More than likely, it's because we've grown to a different place.
right.
We've grown to a different place. So when we grow to when we grow to a new place within ourselves, and we let go and we start to heal and let go of the wounding, which is just low vibrational energy. And when we let go of that low vibrational energy and it begins to raise our resonance and vibration. So then we're only going to be involved with people who are resonating and vibrating at a similar level as we are.
Yep.
So a good thing to do is just go and look back and say, wow, I was once really, really close to that person, but not anymore. I wonder why. And then look at yourself and see where you are.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. As we approach the last question of the show, who wants to come at me tonight? Who wants to who wants to put me on a spot?
I think I'm up, aren't I, Jeff? I think you went last time on our brother.
But you can go ahead.
It sounds like Ev would like it tonight.
I'll drive in. I'll go in, Jeff. I'll go in.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I'll got your back, brother.
I can avoid that.
No, look, we've beautifully talked about all night. Obviously, the abandonment, the codependency that we end up falling back on, those beloved in our life or those relationships that mirror really the childhood wounding. My brother, Jay Rotham, man, with all of your words of wisdom and through your beautiful story, your life, your journey, how were you able to start living a life of your own, not the life that you thought others wanted you to live?
Ask me that question.
Because it's such a big one out there in the collective where people are still comparing themselves to other people's lives, where they should be. And Jay, you've even mentioned that you thought wearing the suit was your life, your armor. So
Okay.
how were you able to start?
Well, Lynn Hall Norton, welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. I'd love to know where you are, where you call home today. And if this may be the first time you're catching us live, welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast. And I think Lynn just right here gave you part of the answer. Get rid of toxic relationships that bring you down. That was a part of it. That's part of my answer. There wasn't one thing I had to do. I had to look at all four pillars: the emotional, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual part of how I had been showing up for myself in my life, and clearly had a very quick understanding that I was running on empty. I had lived a life of surviving, That's how I was taught to live. That's what I was taught in my home. We're survivors. And I embraced that because that's all I knew. I didn't know that there was another way to live. And that's called thriving. And for me, what it came down to is that I had to break the chain to, I had to break the cord to the people that had the greatest influences in my life. I realized that in that moment, it no longer mattered what they thought of me. Because I didn't even know who I was. I realized that everything was just a facade. Everything was just BS on both fronts, BS and belief systems. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to show up for me. Up until that moment, I was showing up for my mom, for my ex-wife, for my children, for my employer, my employees, my customers, what friends I had left. But I wasn't showing up for me. And when I really had that moment of clarity, and I realized it was time. It was time for me to no longer care what you thought. I had to start dating me. I had to learn who I was. Not on the outside, but on the inside. And that was the gateway. When I finally said, I can't live that way anymore, just surviving. I can't live that way anymore in relationships of obligation. When I wasn't even honoring the only relationship that mattered, the relationship with myself. And I couldn't even show up for me because I had no idea what that could look like. So it was surrender. It was having the courage to show up and grow up. And when I say that, show after show, I'm talking about I had to be willing to say no. No thank you to others. I had to be willing to step out of relationships. Not in a mean-spirited way, but in a loving, kind way for myself. Just to say, it's just not good for me right now. I need to put myself in a timeout until I could kind of clear the dust. It's kind of like after 9/11. It took weeks for the dust to clear in Lower Manhattan. That was one event. You have 54 years of dust. It took time. I needed that time. I needed that time to come home. I needed that time to forgive my ego for calling most of the shots in my adult life to protect that little boy. And you know what? He did the best he could, but he sucked at it. He didn't do a good job. He did the best job he knew how. But he took me to hours from death. If you are struggling with emotional, mental, physical conditions, if you have a chronic medical condition that has a term limit on your life right now, it's time to do this work. Now, I'm not waving at you. I'm waving at a little gnat that's decided to show up right on time. My heart breaks for you because I know the pain you're feeling. I lived in that. I felt it. I didn't know how to escape it. The truth is I really self-sabotaged my life. I didn't have the courage to commit suicide. It wasn't a thought, but I was miserable. And that was the easy way out. I just was doing everything I could do to take myself out through food, through cigarettes, through high risk, high adrenaline choices, through food, through work. But in the end, that solution didn't work for ego either. And it was time for me to show up. I think I answered your question. If I didn't, Jeff can take it.
No, it was beautiful, brother.
No,
You got me at the relationship with yourself, my brother. That's what I was waiting to hear.
Yeah.
If you are struggling and you are in pain right now, only you can take you out of that. There's not a drug, there's not an alcohol, there's not a work, there's not enough weed. There's not enough anything outside of yourself that can take the pain away, that can help you heal, so you can heal your medical conditions, so that you don't have to just survive anymore. You can thrive. It's possible. You just have to be willing to show up for you and take some of the steps that we have shared on this episode and all the past episodes. I don't want to preach, but I hope I'm reaching some people tonight that need to hear this. I feel your pain. I see you. I understand you. You never have to be alone. You have to just be willing. And with that, I love you guys. I dropped the link. Surprise, surprise. I've invited, for anyone that wants to join us for a brief after show on this topic tonight. If anyone wants to jump in, I put the link in our comments. We'll maybe do an after show for about 15, 20 minutes or so. If you guys are up to it, I already put it out in the universe. So if you need to drop and you can't join us, that's okay, but I'll be there in the green room. I love you guys. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us this evening on episode 55, Real Men, Real Talk Live. We'll catch you next week. Woo! Join us in the green room for the after show. We love you guys. Love you, Ev, Jeff.
Peace, my
Josh,
brother.
hopefully we'll see you next week.
Much.